rich, then you feel better. That's right. You can bask in their glow. Drive that Acura like it's a Benz. You got a millionaire's fear. Woo! All 40 grand a year. You send your own job away. Then you cut your own fucking pay. You watch a rich man's news. You push a rich man's views. Oh, you hate the working stiff and his nasty union dues. Company man, you paid your dues, now you think you're part of the plan? Yeah, company man, you're on your own cause these colors went and done ran. Company man, you're living high, but guess what? Your income's low. Company man, you got no power, they just made you think so. You'd be a king if your crown weren't missing.
Hello again, working class warriors, and thank you for joining me in another session of the Proletariat Podcast. I hope you had a good March, and I hope April is smashing for you. For those who are religious, I want to wish you a happy Easter, Palm Sunday, Good Friday, all that stuff. I hope that you all have your health and that you are able to spend that time with your family and friends. Now, a lot has happened over the past couple of months here. We've had the Starbucks union that formed. I want to say that's in New Jersey. The new Amazon labor union headed by Christian Smalls. And that's astounding, especially seeing the great efforts Amazon has gone through to stop unions, and specifically Chris Smalls and his crew. So I want to give him a bravo Zulu here. And yeah, it's great news. So if you have been following any labor union or labor organization information as of late, there's been sort of a I don't want to say necessarily snowball effect, but the actions are definitely gaining momentum. We've seen the Frito-Lay slash Pepsi strike. The truckers, they went on strike. I think that happened up in Canada mostly. We had the Nabisco strike happening. A lot of workers have started to really stand up for themselves, and even the recent healthcare workers strike in California. That was back in November, and they were able to win before even pushing the button, just by announcing their intent to withhold their labor. That got the attention of some people, and from what I understand, according to Maggie, they have a nice, fair contract now. So, there's definitely something to a group of workers coming up and standing up for themselves. Never easy. Corporations often put you could say it's their defense spending, right? They spend millions upon millions of dollars in anti-union campaigns and all kinds of things. But the First Amendment has blatantly been under attack, especially since the Trump administration. Once he got into office, things got really weird with media. Oh, what am I saying? No, no, things have been going the same way they've always gone with the First Amendment. When people usually stand up to gather and stand up for themselves, are usually met with, police, federal troops. I mean, be it from, fighting for more wages to trying to protect indigenous land. I'm looking at you, Dapple. yeah, the people are always met with violence, right? Extreme violence to quell their outrage that they're being mistreated and exploited, right? Now, if you have been paying attention to, I'll say, global labor movements, let's say over the past 5 years or so, and I definitely want to recommend that you hop on YouTube and check out the late Michael Brooks channel, because he performed a very nice in-depth explanation and coverage of all of this, all the turmoil that's been going on in the global South, and especially Southern America or South America, where the U.S. has been very heavy-handed in their influence of the government and corporations, so that they can take precious resources and keep them from helping the people, right? If you take a look at, let's say, Venezuela, Brazil, Peru, Chile over the past 5 years, you will see that they have been struggling with a lot of, food insecurity, just straight food scarcity. Things have gotten so bad to where there's such harsh rationing on a food supply, such as like flour, where bakers were getting um, federal time for baking anything other than regular loaves of white bread, right? If it wasn't a necessity, they weren't allowed to create it, right? And no, things haven't gotten so crazy here, but like you really have to understand why why South America, or the people of South America, have been experiencing those issues. And you look at things like lithium, which basically run the world now, between uh, batteries and medication and computer parts, circuit boards and things. This is how it's done. We can officially say that the South America were, or was, the testing grounds for what we are experiencing here right now in 2020. As all you know, food prices are going up. Our grocery stores are getting sparse, if sparsely stocked, if you can say that. I've seen clips of just completely empty ones, just shelves just blasted. And yeah, it ain't the 90s anymore. It ain't the 90s anymore. So yeah, things are really scary right now here. Things are costing more, there's less available, and it's all blamed on a scary pandemic. And there's a little truth to that. Yes, the pandemic for sure, with all the death and all the modification in business operations, have led to some changes. Yeah, it has taken longer for us to get some things, but it's not the main cause for you not being able to go get lettuce at the store, for instance, right? So if you can recall as well, I want to say it was around 2020 when they were showing those when they were showing the clips of the gallons and gallons of milk and potatoes and other agriculture and things just being dumped, right? Claiming that well, they had nowhere to sell it. However, with the food insecurity here in the US, they also didn't care to, and they mean the government, who subsidized the farmers and claim there's no actual loss or waste. Yeah, they decided to not disperse all that nutritious food to the people who need it here in the US. Are they brag about taking steps to cut child poverty and food insecurity in half, which is abysmal, because they should be aiming for 100%. But then you see things like that, gallons of milk being just poured out into the field, potatoes being dumped into a landfill, and then they go through great lengths to as much as like poisoning what they're dumping, so that you can't come by and scavenge it, and still try to feed yourself or your family. So yeah, the powers to be who have perfected this method down in South America and various countries. Yeah, so they have threatened our food supply, right? Why is it? Because, yeah, once again, the working class beginning to stand up for themselves again, right? We haven't seen such an increase in labor actions since May Day. And speaking of which, May Day is approaching. That is May 1st. That is a very historical yet swept under the rug history of the US when it comes to the working class. And it's never even really brought up much in the conversation of the I want to say disappearing middle class now, but I think we can all agree there is no middle class anymore at this point. That's capitalism, right? So instead of taking any meaningful life saving measures, the mentally ill sociopaths that we decide to keep in power took further advantage of or capitalized on the deadly pandemic, right? And I mean, aside from the lives lost from it, you don't hear about the ones who starve to death often. But make no mistake that what we are experiencing here in the US in 2022 is economic warfare. Just look at the blatant assault on the First Amendment during the Trump presidency, clearly making it null and void, right? Or so we thought. Now, the secondary effect of this economic warfare, and this is what we're really going to touch on in the next few episodes here, the psychology of capitalism. The secondary psychological or the secondary effect, excuse me, of this economic warfare is psychological, right? It completely plays on your fears, right? Just look at the plethora of fear-based media, gaslighting, and manufacturing consent. And yeah, what are we talking about? Of course, the news, right? The news. From news to even TV shows who have thinly veiled their overall message, with enough entertainment to keep people distracted. And you know what? I'm just gonna say myself, just seeing the increase in labor actions over the past, say, year or so, um, I think that really scared the corporate power structure here. And when I say corporate, it totally includes all of the politicians and those and members of the government, right? Because we are an oligarchy, and that's pretty much the definition. So I'm I, I'm going to use corporate and government sort of interchangeably, right? Because they're pretty much one and the same at this point. But I'm going to say, yeah, it scared them enough to where I truly believe that this war between Russia and Ukraine, because remember, the movements have, as of late, have been global. If you have been keeping up with any of independent or left-leaning media, you will see there have been protests in France, India. I mean, you name it, Korea. Just a lot. People have been standing up everywhere. So I really believe that this war between Ukraine and Russia, this is a grand distraction, right? Because once again, now we have to worry about uh, well, are missiles going to visit my neighborhood? And now, all the nuclear scares once again. Are we going to destroy the world with nukes? Um, yeah. So, needless to say, is doing a good job at really shifting the conversations. If you've been on any left, or if you're a part of or visited any more left leaning groups in social media, you'll notice it too. I've had to kind of go and ask, like, hey, what happened to worrying about equal equal rights and fair wages and all that? Because yeah, they're just totally distracted by this now. No one cares about paying the bills. They're worried about shaming whoever for killing whoever across over the ocean. And no, it's a bad thing. I don't. No, wars are bad. Wars are bad. Make no mistake. I definitely feel for every person that has to die by in their family who has to die by our the U.S.'s hands because of bombings and things like that. No different for if another country's doing it to someone else, right? But I'm rambling now. Yeah, but I really believe that this war it's just a grand distraction because ultimately, yeah, that the working class is waking up again, right? It's amazing. It's amazing the lengths that these people will go to stay in power. Yeah, we haven't seen such large scale labor action since like the 1930s, and it's pretty crazy. And in that spirit, I'm going to also I'm going to release the May Day episode of the People Class podcast. Make that available on YouTube for free as well. Because once again, that's just great information, a lot of history that has been swept under the rug. And a lot of people don't really understand how many people died so that one, you can work 8 hours, not have to work 16 or more. And a lot of people died so that children didn't have to go and get marred and mangled and die and get all kinds of weird diseases, out there working with us as well. So very important day, and yeah, we need to do what we can to like really recognize it. But it's going to take a while. It's going to take a longer time for our grassroots movements here to get a foothold. So moving forward here, we're going to discuss the psychology of capitalism. I was a little reluctant to include it in the Breaking the Programming series. However, I think it fits very well as we were going to cover fear, right? But more in the sense of what's holding you back towards taking those steps to live the life you want, towards you making your business a reality, stuff like that. However, we have to understand the underlying mechanisms, right, that bring about those fears, right, that hinder your progress, and the obstacles put in place. Some of them lead to certain death, right? if you attempt to, uh, if you attempt to overcome them, and sadly, sometimes that attempt is practicing your First Amendment right, right? To go out and protest, to go out and air your grievances, publicly. Um, so we're going to get into all this moving forward here, if it's perfectly within the realm of breaking uh, the fear, right? When trying to become more of a master of your life, which, it can't be done 100%, but there's steps you can take to doing meaningful work. So, first and foremost, I would like to remind everyone who are crying out to the government to help. Remember that number one, This nation was founded by slavers. Slavers who could not practice slavery in Europe anymore because it had been abolished, outlawed, right? And we're talking about pre civilization in the U.S. We're talking about before the Pilgrims, right? We're talking about the first people who came over in the 1600s to colonize the eastern seaboard. And what did they do? They bought their indentured servants and their slaves along with them. And then we know what happened after that. The yeah, the whole slave trade boomed after that, right? So once again, this nation was founded by slavers who couldn't practice slavery anymore in Europe, led here to continue the abysmal practice, which has been modified in many different ways, right? That if you split hairs, you can have some reasonable doubt that is not slavery. However, make no mistake, the majority of the US are still living like slaves. So the saying's true. A few bad apples ruin the whole bunch. And yeah, when we look at the overall population of the US, and this is astounding compared to the number of men and women who, quote, I'll say with air quotes, run the US, i.e., the government. Um, yeah, we clearly outnumber these guys, and yet their minority seems to rule supreme. And so it's an interesting paradigm. And yeah, at face value, yeah, it sounds kind of ridiculous, right? If there's a mass of 20 people versus say 4, and the 4 want to be I'll just say unsavory characters to the other 20, the 4 might really want to rethink their actions, right, before offending the 20. How, because the 20 can obviously very easily overpower the 4. But when the 4 go into the shadows and start creating systems of, invisible walls and such like that, become a little less, become a little more intangible, then yeah, this is where we start running into problems. And the big issue here, right? The big issue here, in the US especially, as opposed to other countries, is that a lot of our peers who are a part of this massive population, the majority, deep in their heart believe that they can reach the status that the bad apples do through their terrible actions, right? There's a lot of people who still believe that if they just come up with that grand idea, they're going to be a billionaire like Jeff Bezos, and everybody's chasing celebrity and fame. And I don't know about you, but it seems like over the past maybe 10 years or so, it's definitely become fashionable here in the US to just sort of, and excuse my French here, I'm going to say show your ass, as they would say. Yeah, we have a lot of people who are really putting their most unsavory behavior on display on social media, and it's being not admonished but admired, right? In this quest for fame and wealth. So yeah, capitalism, a few bad apples ruin the bunch, and then we're dealing with the monkey see, monkey do problem. In this series, I'm not going to go too deep in this session, but I just wanted to sort of introduce what we're going to be covering, because it's going to be a lot. And I don't want to hold you for like 3 hours. That would be ridiculous. In our examination of the psychology of capitalism, spoiler alert, it's the fear. We're going to look at a lot of the obstacles, right, that I just mentioned here, a lot of the systems, a lot of the institutions that are put into place, and how it's been very successful for a very long time. But hopefully, with some resilience and a little more fervor, the U.S. working class will continue to stand their ground and make their voices heard. Sort of bittersweet. In the next few episodes here of the Breaking the Programming series, we're going to be looking at things like social conditioning, from schools teaching more pro-authoritarian, anti-intellectual, curricula, things like American exceptionalism, right? It's part of the reason why a lot of revolutions have a hard time once the leader is killed. And we'll cover specifically Martin Luther King as an example, because if you look at that civil rights movement and what happened after he died, Martin Luther King is the epitome of American exceptionalism, but sort of subverted, right? And we'll get into that. We're going to take a look at Ivy League institutions. We're talking about academia. We're talking about all the intellectual authority, as it were, who are a part of that 1% club, who don't really add much value. A lot of thought practices and things. Nothing that actually adds value and creates false status. We're going to look at Ivy League institutions. We're going to look at college tuition, grade school criteria overall. And we're going to explore how capitalism ultimately exploits humans' fatal flaw. And that's emotions, right? The one thing that enhances our experience, right? What separates us from the other beasts of the world, our ability to feel emotions, and how that's exploited and hacked to keep us impoverished as a whole and even individually. We're going to look at social coercion. And by social coercion, we're talking about the very pervasive, the very violent, police forces, the military, police for profit, or for-profit punitive justice, I will say. All that stuff that ultimately bleeds into the workplace and ultimately into our homes, right? I mean, from the marriage institution, we're going to look at everything here that's used against you to take advantage or to capitalize on the fact that you, as a human, experience a wide range of emotions that the rest of the animal kingdom don't really, I'll say, abide by, because I don't want to say suffer with. It's just a part of the experience, right? And capitalism, as much as you want to think it's about capitalizing on ideas and things like that, no, it's really capitalizing on the fear and misery and suffering of humankind. And that's when we break this all down, and once you see it, hopefully it would help you sort of break more illusions, right, about this environment called the United States of America. Break the illusions of the American dream. And that's going to be very important in your journey to becoming more self-sufficient. And once again, another obstacle placed on that, right? You can bring up the fact that, and I'm going on a tangent here, but we could bring up the fact that for side hustles now, as of June, July 2021, if you bring in $600 for yourself, you have to now claim that, right? Meanwhile, Mr. Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, whoever else you can name, Bill Gates, still gone, upwards of looking at maybe 2 decades now without paying a penny in taxes. So yeah, we're going to explore all of this. I just wanted to give you a brief introduction and sort of context in which we're going to be addressing everything, because once again, it's going to be a long topic. So yeah, if you had to scramble for a second job, you spend your nights worried about how you're going to pay your bills. If you're worried about crossing the street when the little white man isn't blinking, you understand the fear imposed on you by capitalist practices. And things get a little nuts. Crazy laws that don't make sense exist. It I just have to laugh. I mean, things like you can't carry peanuts in your pocket after what, like 4 p.m. Like, there's literally crazy laws like that that exist that still haven't been even taken off of the books, in various states, right? It's nutty. But yeah, if you've lived in the United States at all since 2008, like, you understand the fear. But if you would like to try to get past that fear, I invite you to continue to sit into these sessions, educate yourself, and understand the power you actually have, right? Because once again, if these corporations and things can't make money, they really can't do much to you, right? If you're not going in for that abusive employer and they have to close their doors, who's really in power here? And so this is what we're going to look at, right? Um, it's a mind game, and power structure has definitely fooled a lot of people and indoctrinated them into uh, passivity, and I'll say feeling a lot of worthlessness, right? So let me know if you understand this sort of this pervasive sort of, feeling of worthlessness that sort of always hangs over your life here in the U.S., and not by means of wanting fame or fortune or anything, but just when you realize that healthcare is tied to employment, you're taxed to death. Um, if you've ever felt that way, and I know I have several times, and I've talked to other people who do, but would love to sort of further the conversation. Go ahead and send a email to thepeopleclass@gmail.com. All right. And I'll go ahead and answer that. And also, you can hit me up on Twitter as well at proletariat, spelled just like the podcast. And yeah, if you have any questions, hit me up, ask me anything, and I would love to have a little more viewer interaction here. So keep an eye out for the re-release of the May Day episode here on YouTube, and if you can, send that to some people, because it's a very important history in the U.S. And for as important as it is, and although or the power structures are trying to backtrack on the progress we have made, i.e., more jobs require more of your time, i.e., they're really pushing to get young teenagers into the workplaces now. I mean, to the point of giving them CDL licenses. Yeah, things are getting ridiculous. But go ahead, get in contact. Just stop by and say hello. But I want to thank you for sitting and listening to me here today. I promise the next few episodes will be more structured. Stay tuned for part one, I guess, of the psychology of capitalism. And in that episode, we're going to be exploring two topics here, and that's going to be greed and the fear of loss. And this is gonna really underline everything that's coming afterwards. So once again, I want to thank you, working class warriors, for listening in. I want to thank you for your support. Maggie H, Brian N, Laura G, thank you so much for your support on Patreon. This is the Dean, wishing you peace, love, and solidarity. Have a good one.
Time to take back what's yours, company man. Time to just be a man. Or shit, even half a man. Quit swiping your ID over that scanner. Jump on in, come on. Let's get a plan, though. Nighty night, company man.